welcome back to another episode of the Aligned as Fuck podcast. I am super excited as we're going to sort of mix things up a little bit. And I sort of had this download recently that I wanted to bring in some of my friends, some of the other thought leaders that I deeply admire and the work that they're doing onto the show, and have what I'm going to call these raw, real riff sessions. And so I could not be more thrilled to kick off this part of the podcast with one of my dearest and oldest friends. I have Chris O'Hearn in the house, and it's actually really hard for me to just say Chris O'Hearn, and I'll explain that in a minute. Chris and I go way back, and back in the days of when I used to announce for the hockey team in college, and I used to manage the team. And Chris was one of the hockey players. In fact, he was a phenomenal hockey player. And I would always announce him as Chris O'Hearn, right? So it is awesome to have him with me. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him in a moment, but these sessions, just like the show, are unscripted. It's raw, it's real, it's gritty. It's just getting into some shit that needs to be put on the table. And so I really felt like, while I have a lot to say, obviously, I think it's really imperative that you get to hear sort of the interplay between other thought leaders, their perspective. And I will tell you, I know even in some of our conversations to warm up for these sessions, we don't always agree on things. And that's what I like. We're opening up space to be curious, to think differently, to explore the next level of what's showing up, whether it be from a higher level consciousness, whether it be from a higher level leadership. It's our opportunity to lean in together and go down those rabbit holes. And so I have no idea, like zero attachment idea or agenda as to where this conversation is going to go. Every time Chris and I talk, it goes somewhere magical. It's delicious. It's one of the reasons I wanted to have him be the first friend I bring to the table. And so before I introduce him, let me just welcome him and say hello. Chris, I am so glad you're here. I love you. It is just an honor to be in this space with you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let me tell you a little bit about him so that you know who he is, aside from being just one of my dearest friends. Like I said, I think if I think about it, and I'm going to date both of us, I think Chris and I've known each other for about 30 years at this point. We're going on that 30-year mark. It might not quite be there, but pretty close.
Which seems impossible because we're both like 26.
Right? I'm like 19. I don't know about you, but yeah, exactly, right? And so we did go to college together. I was actually a couple years older than Chris. He came in. Like I said, we really got to know each other through hockey. And then we would have late nights. We would have these kind of hockey parties and hockey get-togethers and things between roommates and dorm rooms and things. And Chris and I inevitably had these like just really deep, insightful conversations that are going to be a lot like what we do today. And so watching Chris and his growth in his career has been something that's just really been fascinating. For those of you that don't know, he is a high performance mindset and alignment coach for his company, Strong Within. And so there's already resonance. I love the fact that he talks about strong within, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. He works with individuals on a subconscious level to get them unstuck by realigning them with their purpose and helping them feel empowered from the strength within. The other things that are some notable things about Chris and his career is not only has he been a personal trainer for 16 years, he was also featured on MTV. If y'all remember back when there was actually like these things going on MTV, he was on a show called I Used to Be Fat. And I remember watching the clips of him training one of the contestants or one of the participants on that show. And that show was affiliated from the same producers that did Biggest Loser. So they were kind of going on hand in hand. Chris actually was one of the coaches that was on that show. And so you can just see he's had some deep resonance in the work that he's doing. He also has a affirmation podcast called the Strong Within Affirmation Podcast. I highly suggest you take a look at it. He shows up on social media every day. He always has something brilliant, something that's connected, something to talk about, to reach out there. And then we're going to talk about a new program he has coming up for January, we'll get to that at the end. So that being said, Chris, once again, welcome. I want to jump right in and talk about this idea of strong within. I think it's a great place for us to see where the rabbit hole takes us, because I know for you that has a lot of levels and a lot of meaning. So talk about sort of the journey for you to be this thought leader in a space around helping people get connected to being strong within.
Sure. And I believe in the power of language. So I'm going to use some language that I don't necessarily use with other people. But a lot of my stuff came from brokenness. But I don't believe anyone's broken. It's just where I came from. And a lot of that came from my thought process. It was about perfectionism. If I could do this, people would love me. If I could give more, if I could be more, if I could be who people wanted me to be, then I could love myself. I could feel aligned. I could feel my purpose. And I prayed a lot in my life for God to show me my purpose. God, please give me my purpose. Then I can feel aligned. I can feel where I know I need to be. And that's one of the lies I think we tell ourselves. We think we need this one great purpose, but we have many great purposes. We're moms, we're fathers, we're lawyers, we're all these things. And when I was asking these questions about my purpose, I didn't get an answer. I was expecting God to speak, either a burning bush or, or like how you and I are speaking. When I didn't get that answer, I came to the conclusion that I didn't have a purpose. And so then the things that I struggled with was worth. And I was always trying to find my worth outside of myself through other people. If I could do this in relationships or friendships or things. And then when I get exactly what I wanted, I would feel even more barren and alone because it didn't fulfill me. And I remember too, and this is what you do, this is what I think all great coaches do, is we lead from insight. And a lot of my intuition, a lot of my epiphanies came from these places of just asking deep questions, and I was ready to hear them. And so I asked this question, and I believed, and this is where Strong Within came in, it was before then, but where it started to finally click is I asked these three questions, and it came from a place of religion at first. I'm more spiritual now, but I asked, is there a God? And I said, well, I always believed, I was raised Catholic. This is the way that God is and all that stuff. He's this Zeus-like figure. He's got this beard and all that stuff. And I said, I believe there's a God, but I don't understand. I don't understand what it is, whether it's an energy or something else. And so I said, well, if there is a God, is there a purpose for everything? And I said, yes. If Earth was closer to the sun, we'd be burned up. If we were further away, and just there was perfection in everything. If you think about how our body functions, just to beat our heart, just to breathe, just to use oxygen and to put CO2 out back into the world, just there's this perfection in everything. And so then I asked the next question, which was, is there a purpose for everything? And I had answered in the first question. And then the last question I asked was, is there a purpose for me? And I had answered all that stuff. And I had come to that question before, but I was ready to hear that. And that's where that change started to happen. And I said, okay, well, if there's a purpose for me, how do I start doing that? And in my mind, and I've had these intuitions where just something came up and it says, you need to speak differently. And I didn't know what that meant. And I call them affirmations. Now I learned about affirmations, and affirmations isn't just about speaking. It's about embodying and becoming that. And that's where that strength within came from, is I just felt this openness. I had to get vulnerable enough to realize that I didn't want to be this way anymore, because there were three options, and I won't monopolize this. There are three options that I saw within my life where I came to this. I said, either I'm going to kill myself because I'm just so unhappy. And I thought about suicide every single day from about like since I was like 10 or 11. I thought about ways to kill myself. I thought about how I could hang myself. I thought about how I could, if I lived on the second floor, how I could do that. But then I was worried about my family finding me. And I just was thinking about all this stuff. So there were three options. And I said, I'm either going to kill myself, or either I'm going to be dead emotionally inside for the rest of my life and feel this way for the rest of my life, and this will be my life. Or the third option was, I'm going to find a way out of this, no matter what that is. And I think it's Edison says this: when you think you've tried everything, you haven't. There's always something else you can unturn. And that's what Candy and I would do as coaches, is we help people to see that there are more options, to change the perception and look at those things. And that's where it came from, is this brokenness. And I read a lot of self-development books, Tony Robbins, other things, because I was always trying to heal myself. And they were great, but I had to do a lot of that healing from within, and I had to just be willing to admit that who I was and where I'd come from isn't who I am or where I'm going.
Yeah. And so first, I'm just going to say, I just love that you just went there, because there's so much I want to pull out of what you just said. And I want to play with a little bit and dig into deeper. So one, I just want to offer that I'm deeply grateful for your vulnerability and even putting that space out there, because I think sometimes in the work that we do, especially when you get to a level where you really have embodied the healing aspects of some of the things that have shown up for you to stand in your purpose. And I definitely want to talk about that a little bit. But even the fact that through that, there is this notion sometimes that, well, we've got it figured out and it's all easy. And some of these things still show up and rub at us from different angles. And so I want to start first, this idea of purpose. I personally, and I do a lot of talking about this. And so I'd love to hear your perspective. So I want to kind of break down some of these different things.
Sure.
We think we've been taught our whole life that purpose is this thing we got to go find, that it's this one thing, like you said, it's this one thing that's outside there that we got to go seek our purpose. And what I've found in my journey is that purpose is not anything, one, outside of yourself, and two, it's not something that has to be found. It's simply a being of who you are in that space. Like when I think about purpose, I'm like, you are your purpose. You are purpose and I think about your story, and I think about this evolution of changing your mindset, changing your language, changing how you embody a belief about yourself, and it comes from within. I think about all of that has been part of your purpose, because without some of that feeling of unworthiness, without some of those trials and tribulations, would you be able to stand in the space to do the work that you're doing now? And so I'm curious, when you think about purpose, how would you define purpose now, as you've had sort of this journey and more of this awareness and awakening around who you are, your worth, some other things? How do you access and define purpose now?
I mean, there could be many ways that we go with it, but what I'm feeling right now is being in the eternal now, being mindful, being aware. Because what we look at, most people are living in a dream state instead of dreaming where they want to be and then applying that. So we look at where we don't want to be. Well, this sucks that this is going on. I'm not in the relationship that I want to be in, or my marriage isn't going well. I'm not making the money that I want. And so then what we're doing is we're allowing the external environment to dictate how we feel, how we go through things. And so the way that I deal, or that I see purpose, is to understand, and we've had this conversation before, I now say the universe instead of God, but I'll interchange, is that everything that's happening in our lives at this moment is just a reflection of what we need to go through. We say that, oh, okay, well, I'm looking for that right person in my life, but that right person, there are no wrong people. There are people who are always in our lives to help us to learn, to help us to grow. Yes, we don't want to go through that, but there was something that I saw that it said, one of the hardest lessons I had to learn is that the emotionally unavailable person that I keep attracting into my life is the person that I'm being, and I'm attracting more of that. And it's not saying that we're putting the blame, because you and I don't put the blame onto people, but it's about all of these lessons that are coming in our lives, because they're saying, hey, this is a spot that you are either not working on, you're not willing to address, or this is something that you need to go through. So I guess the purpose is, it's just about being in the moment and understanding that there is greatness in every single thing that we go through. It doesn't mean that, we can't be sad or upset, but we allow, and people will say, I'm a product of my environment. We're not a product of our environment. Yes, that is part of it. We're a product of our choices. We're a product of our perception. And so it's again, just coming into this spot saying, okay, maybe I don't like exactly what's going on, but what's really going on here? What is the bigger purpose? How can I see beyond this? How can I see that this is not happening to me? I like this saying where people say, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And that's, I think, coming back into it, because when we come from a place of ownership, then our whole lives change. And that's where the purpose comes in.
Yeah, and I want to hit on that because that's exactly where I was about to go. There's an ownership. And I think about Deepak always says, he goes, look, life isn't what it is, it's what you choose to accept. And so when I think about what you say and being in the now moment, I absolutely love that. Your purpose is now. There is no past. It's done. We tend to create this whole story, and we oftentimes carry too much energy to bring the past into and steal the present moment. And the future is not real. There is no future. There's no guarantee. And whatever your future is going to be is dictated by your choices in the now. And so I think about that ownership, because when people do that blame game, when they're like, oh, life is happening to me and it's so bad, I'm like, no, life is showing up exactly as you asked for it, based on either what you need to heal, what you get to expand, what you get to grow. If your life is showing up in repeat patterns, it's showing up. And there was something that said, you will see the same relationships because you still have an opportunity to heal that, or you're still calling that in from a mindset or a perspective that says, I think I deserve this. I think this is where I need to play. And I know people get triggered on that. They're like, well, not everything in the world is a function of, and it is. It's a collective function. Sometimes the bigger things that we see, tsunamis, we see these, it's a collective energy of what we are putting out. We manifest every moment of every minute, everything. When we take a breath, we're manifesting. There is a thought, there's a feeling, there's an energy, there is a something. We create that. And it's why I love when you even started, you said, I'm going to be very clear about using empowering words. I'm going to say things I may not say to other people, because that mindfulness of knowing, is this aligned with what I want to be calling to me? And there's a real ownership to say, wow, my life's a shit show right now. Where's my piece of that? Because if this is a shit show going on right now, there is something I did to bring this forward, or there is something I get to lean into to explore a deeper truth. And I think about, when we talk about coaches, people are always like, oh, what's the role of a coach? I'm like, in my opinion, there's 3 functions of a coach, and that's it. One is, we are nothing more than a reflection. We are the mirror of truth that's going to kick your ass. And we're going to hold up a mirror and say, I want you to hear what you just said. I want you to look in the mirror and see. You need to look in the mirror and see that you're saying this, you're doing this, these 2 things are not adding up. Or you're saying this and it really means this, and this is the energy. We're truth tellers, but not from the space of being the ones that tell the truth. We're the ones to hold up the mirror that says, you ready to look in? I'm going to kick your ass a little bit. It's right here. You got to look in. So the first role is, we have that opportunity to hold up that mirror.
And we come from a place of non-judgment as well.
For sure, because we're not attacked. And I love that you said non-judgment, we come from what's the word people always use? They're like, I want an unbiased opinion. Okay, that's not real. We are human beings who have, a tree has a bias. I need people to understand that anything that has any kind of living, breathing organism to it has a bias. So I love that you said it's coming from a place of non-judgment and unattachment. I can be neutral. I don't have a vested interest other than I really, really, really want you to get back to who you are, that alignment. And it's not my job to do it for you. I can't do it for you. And I think there's a big space in that. The second thing is, there's a space around being able to open up new possibilities. And I heard you say that sometimes it's because there's something else to look at, right? There's another path, that there are infinite possibilities. I think about all the time, we get so caught up in that right or wrong, right? You're right, I'm wrong. Shit. Really? You could be right, I could be right, and there could be an infinite array of rightness. It's not about right, it's around, does this serve for what you want and how you should. And so there's that space of, have you considered, imagine if, I know you can only see it like in your little peripheral. How about I help pull you out of that forest so that you can see, or pull you out of that tree so you can see the forest again, right? That's the role of a coach. And then the third one is helping you hold yourself accountable. It's that space of, okay, you said you want this. Are you doing and I think about a lot of people, and I would love your take, because this goes into some of your conversation, I think, around shifting out of religion and spirituality, because that's a whole loaded mess that I love to get into. Sure. It's that space of when I hear people say, I watched The Secret, it doesn't work. When they talk about spirituality or love, I'm like, it works. You didn't watch The Secret from a perspective to, and I get there's things that movie and other things really should have brought in, but there's nothing in the world that says you get to just put your wish out there and then sit on your ass or your laurels and wait for it to come to you. It says you're going to put your desire out there, and then you're going to align yourself in every way possible to take spiritual inspired action to do your part. Sometimes that's just holding a space to receive. Sometimes that's making the uncomfortable phone call. Sometimes that's getting up on video and using your voice, whatever that might be. And so I'm curious, Chris, for you in your journey, where has that played out for you? Like when you think about sort of moving into that space, because again, we coach from a place, and I know you do this. We coach from a place of things that have kicked us in the ass as well, and have literally been the path of what we've had to learn or are still learning. I mean, I tell people constantly, I teach what I need to learn. I think I teach this stuff so that I keep myself in a present, mindful space to remind myself of what's possible, because it's easy to get off. How do you navigate through those kind of spaces as a coach, as someone who's a thought leader, as someone who knows and has activated their purpose to be a visible influence? And what happens when the shit comes down and you got to face one of those mirrors, or you got to, like, how do you navigate through that?
Yeah, this is when I was talking about learning how to transition my mindset, my speech pattern. Most people, they go straight into the work. I need to speak differently. I need to think differently. I got to do this. And that's there are great things in that. But we need to step back and we need to become aware. And for me, and this is where, most of the people that I've talked with who have had these true major transformations, I mean, yes, other people could have given it to them. This insight happened. And, for me, it was, I didn't realize at the time, but I was teaching my subconscious because the subconscious is operating all the time. I went through some neurolinguistic programming training. They say, our subconscious is controlling 95 to 99% of our lives. Our consciousness will direct the subconscious. Subconscious doesn't know the difference between fact or fiction. It just knows what we feed it. It knows the emotions, the extreme emotions, and the thoughts that we're focused on. It says, oh, okay, well, you say you're a piece of shit, or you say you're garbage, or you say you're not worthy of this. I'm going to make sure that I keep you in alignment with that. So the subconscious doesn't really have this purpose of right or wrong. It's just wherever you're focusing on it. And so I started to train the subconscious. First of all, I had to change. It's like I said to myself, well, I've been happy before. I know I've laughed. You knew me. I was really goofy and all that stuff. But my goofiness and my humor was actually a defense mechanism. If I was always joking about things, no one would ever know what was going on. I wouldn't have to deal with it. And then, I was always a helper. So then I was like, well, if people knew that I dealt with this, then I can't help them. And so I came to the realization that I wanted something different. If I'd been happy before, I knew I could be happy again. And that's what I truly want. And I believe when we're not happy, and happy is not the right word, when we're not feeling good, maybe that's a simple word, we're out of alignment. It doesn't mean that we can't feel bad if someone dies or a breakup or anything like that, but we get in this constant aspect of feeling bad all the time because that's where we're focusing. So then I was training myself, oh, well, if I'm feeling bad, what does that feel like? And so for me, it was in my solar plexus. I'd feel this tightness. I'd feel kind of this, like I was closed off. But when I would be open and I was feeling good, I'd feel open. It was the exact opposite feeling. I'd feel open. The hairs on the back of my neck were standing up. I kind of feel that tingling sensation. I'm feeling it right now as I talk about it. When I would say things like, you may not have the answer now, but you'll find it. That the world has a purpose for you. There are things that are still out there for you. There are great things that are happening right now. Life is happening for you. And so when I say these things of possibility, I would feel this openness. So it was really about training myself, the subconscious, to say, hey, this is what it feels like when you're out of alignment. So then it will say, oh, okay, there's something that's going on. And then here's the other part, another hard part. And I don't want to say hard, because if I say hard, we're creating that reality.
Make that be, for sure. And people don't realize
Yes.
it. They'll be like, this is so hard. I'm like, it doesn't have to be. Stop telling
Yeah.
yourself that story.
Yeah. So there's an awareness that comes in. And so my subconscious, and I always say it's knocking on the consciousness door. Hey, you're not in alignment with what you said you wanted. You're thinking negatively. You're talking negatively. You're feeling negative. What do you want to do about that? And so then here's the other part, the consciousness. And this is where a lot of us can falter, myself included. When I was dealing with the depression, suicidal thoughts, it was so important for me to shift immediately, because if it didn't shift immediately, it was telling my subconscious that it was okay to stay here and that I really wasn't committed to that change. And that's where we get into it's like, oh, I'll take care of it tomorrow. I'll take care of it later. But when you train that subconscious to waken you and to say, hey, something's out of alignment, that's where then that shift, we have to do something immediately. It doesn't even have to be something big. It might just be saying, okay, I'm aware of this. I'm creating a blank space by stepping back and just saying, okay, even though I'm thinking negatively and I'm having trouble changing that right now, let's just look at what's going on right now. Let's become aware of that. And so, that's kind of, it's the training of the subconscious, the training of the wholeness of us, because a lot of us are separate. We're in separate parts instead of saying we're aligned. And the other part I was thinking about, I saw this on social media, Tom Bilyeu, I don't know how to
Oh
say
yeah,
his
I
name.
love Tom. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was talking about, someone said, why are you so interested in the Matrix, like the movie, The Matrix, Neo? And they said, everyone thinks Neo's the one, but Neo isn't the one until he believes he's the one.
Oh, that just gave me chills. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
so then he becomes the one, and I'm getting chills now too, is that we're not the one until we finally can believe it. We already can be, but it doesn't happen until we start believing we're the one.
well, and what's so great about that, oh my God, I just, first of all, The Matrix is one of my favorite movies. Although if you want the ultimate, for anybody that ever wants to get a total mind fuck, watch all three of them back to back. You will sit and stare at a wall for 2.5 hours going, oh my God, where am I? Am I in the dream? Am I real? It's such, like, it's intense to watch all. I did that one Sunday.
Yeah.
Not sure I can do that again, because it was a lot to like process. That being said, what I love about that, first of all, I have chills like crazy right now, those God bumps that are just like lit up. Because the idea of he didn't know he was the one until he believed he was the one. That is the power we all have. We all are a chosen one. We are all here with purpose, our purpose, to be a catalyst, to be something different in the whole matrix or the puzzle of the universe at this time right now. And we all get that opportunity to own that if we choose. And it could be just in how you raise your kids. It could be in raising a garden. It could be the way you smile at people and are present with them. I'm not talking about these grandiose ways that we have to show up. And I love that you said it's the small things, because sometimes, and I really want to get into this because I know you do affirmations, and I have some things that I get triggered about when I hear people talk. And I know you have a different space around this. And sure. I know people get jammed up that it sounds nice. Oh, it's just I can do an affirmation. Yet there needs to be more depth to the affirmation. There needs to be a space. Now, it can be a simple shift. And I love Mel Robbins does the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5-second rule, right? Change your state. Sometimes all we need to do is move our body. Like you literally need to go from sitting, because first of all, sitting already creates a contraction in your body. And if you're feeling that tension, that contraction, whatever, sitting is just going to give you a space to like fetal position, right? Versus, okay, one of the best ways you can change your state is to just get up and like literally think like the Superman or the Wonder Woman pose that says, I'm going to expand my chest. Just by physically creating an expansion, you can shift. Because when we think the word expansion, you immediately, your shoulders kind of go back and your chest opens up. So that in and of itself, that state change, I think is really important. I want to talk about that in terms of affirmations, because I think there's a lot of people that talk about affirmations are like, you just need an affirmation. And I will say that an affirmation for the sake of an affirmation, while it can have some power, it usually doesn't. Oftentimes that for me, I know there has to be a deeper connection to why that affirmation matters. Like almost as if those affirmations need to be my own kind of customized. And so I would love to hear this, because you do a lot of work. Or I mean, you have a podcast around strong within affirmations. And so I want to really hear your perspective around how do people, the simplicity that can be part of the affirmation process, and how do people make affirmations work for them?
Sure. You brought up a good point. A lot of times why they can't work or they don't is because they do the mind work, but they don't do the body work, like you said. So I talk about, we have multiple minds in our body. They talk about we have all these neurons in our stomach, and, they actually have more neurons in our stomach than a dog brain or a cat brain. And, that's why we feel butterflies in our stomach and all that stuff. And so what happens is you may change the mindset, at least for a little bit, but then if your body, like you said, you're feeling that contracted aspect, the mind's going, something's out of alignment here. And so then the mind, the subconscious, it's always about self-preservation. It's saying something's off. So there is something off. So it's about how do we get the fullness of it, but the fullness of the body, the subconscious, the consciousness, how do we bring it in? But the other aspect, and I don't say this in my affirmation podcast because I don't want people, not that I don't want them to think this, but you don't need an affirmation. And what I mean by that is you become the affirmation. And that's where things, they think they have to say it over and over again. I'm worthy, I'm good enough, I'm good enough. And you're coming from a place of lack saying those things. And so that's why they're not working, because you're focusing on the lack that I don't have this, and you're still feeling on this emotion. So I'll say to your audience, so if I was to tell you not to think about a black cat, what are you thinking about? You're
For
thinking
sure.
about the black cat. So we're thinking about, oh, my heartbreak, I'm worthy, I don't have enough money, even though, and I can feel myself, that constriction happening right now. So it's really about the affirmation. What I hope to teach people, or hope for people to embody, is that whatever you think and speak is your reality, and that you then are seeing this. So it's not an affirmation to repeat. And that's where people say just the affirmation, say it over and over and over again. And that comes from the thought process of, and I did a video on this lately. It's like people say, fake it till you make it.
Oh, I
And
hate that expression so much.
yeah,
It is one of my
and so
biggest triggers.
yeah, you're teaching yourself to fake yourself in that. I get what they're saying. And so then just embody the being of it, the aspect of that. And that's where a lot of times where people are out of alignment. Because if you wake up in the morning, even myself, I'm thinking about, oh God, I didn't sleep so well. I wish I had a little bit more time, or let's hit that snooze button, and then I'm like, okay, well, so we focus on all these things of places where we don't want to be. And I'll say this probably from the most extreme example. So depression was the condition that I was giving myself. And then what was going on, or is the cause, or I guess I'm trying to figure out how I say this normally, is that then the suicidal thoughts were the after effect, was the symptom of the root cause of that depression and the thing. So I would say these things over and over again. Life sucks, you're not worthy, no one loves you, you're never going to be married, and all that stuff. And when the subconscious is always about self-preservation, and it says, shit, if life is that bad, then let's end it right now. And so, it was this cause that I created by thinking about the depressive things. I was focusing on what was going on. I was focusing on where I wasn't wanted, where I didn't want to be, and all these other things. And so then what happened was I then created my environment. There is an environment around us, but we can't control that. But there's an environment that we create at every single moment, like that wellness. And so with the affirmations, it's like, yes, we should speak higher of things, because a lot of times when we're speaking about the negative, we're really speaking the lies, that I'm not good enough, that I'm not smart enough. And we're not really embodying. We're looking at one moment that I fucked up, and then I messed up, and then I went and spoke in front of 100 people and it went horrible, and all these other things. I'm a horrible speaker. And so then that's not the truth of it. It was just one condition of what something happened. And so, anyways, I'm kind of getting in circular argument, but the affirmation is, it's really about seeing that, how do we have wholeness of it? And then how do we see that really the affirmation is speaking how we want to feel, and then understanding that we can be that at any moment when we decide to shift the perception. Because myself included, it's much easier. It's like Velcro. It's much easier to focus on negative thoughts, negative feelings, because you don't have to change. You don't have to do anything. It's easy. And a lot of people want to stay there. And there's also too, and I'll bring this up real quick. There's a study that I was reading about with Vietnam vets. And I don't know, it's done in the 90s. And they had seen combat experience. And so they were watching these graphic videos. They had all these monitors. They're being tested on all this stuff. And what the researcher found is that they had this analgesic effect, which is basically like a pain medicine that was produced in their body. So they were getting morphine-like effects from watching this stuff. And so what happens is, when we go to these negative things, we actually become addicted to them, because the chemical reactions say, oh, you're in a hard spot, I'm going to help you through this. And so I say some of the greatest addictions we have are negative thinking, self-pity, because then we don't have to change and it feels good. And I'll say this real quick and I'll end it here. Like when I went through breakups and all that stuff, I noticed that I would talk about them all the time. I would think about them all the time. I was asking why and all these answers that I'd never get answers to, because I needed to come to that closure on myself. But it made me feel better, because it was a sick way, and I don't mean sick in a bad way, to stay connected with them without having them in my life. And it also made me feel comfortable in the aspect of I don't need to change, and then I can live in this pity and this self, and then, and then I can just pray, oh, they'll come back for me or whatever it is, instead of saying there's a lesson here. Let's get through the lesson, and this person would help you to that, and then maybe you'll get back together in the future, or maybe they're just meant to help you to that next phase in your life.
Right. And I'm going to say something as a result of that is going to trigger a lot of people. We sensationalize feeling like the martyr. And I'm going to say that we've created a whole culture. And I do this a lot in my talks. We have a culture that complains and commiserates, not connects and communicates. And it is really easy because think about like you and I back in the, although you and I didn't really do this, but people do this. You would say, hey, Chris, how you doing? And your response would be like, oh, Candy, my life sucks. I can't tell you how busy I am. I got all this shit going on. You have no idea how many fucked up things keep coming at me and blah, 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 blah. And of course, me being the good friend says, oh, Chris, please, you think your life sucks? Let me tell you how bad mine is. Oh, shit, you got this going on. I got this. And we have a whole culture around who can outsuck who. I mean, we literally play the martyr in every aspect, and it goes back to that ownership. And I honestly, we're going to have to continue this on another podcast for sure. But in my opinion, it's the reason we have the lack of leadership in multiple levels across, especially in the Western Hemisphere right now, on every level, whether it be in big business, whether it be in government, whether it be in our religion, whether it be, there's a lack of leadership because nobody wants to take ownership for their shit. And so that space of, and I think about one of the things I love so much about what you said, the affirmation is only as good as the choice you make to embody what is required for you to become that state. And I think that is such a missed opportunity for most people because they're like, well, I said my affirmations. Because again, it's that, see, I did it. You did what? You said a couple words that you don't believe and your brain's going, yeah, but, and that big butt's getting in the way. And it's like, blah, 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 blah.
You tried it.
No real, right? You tried. Oh my God. The Yoda in me comes out every time I hear someone use the word try. There is no try. And I also think there's do. There is, what do you need to do? What do you need to be? And it's not even a doing question. It's a, what do you need to be to emulate and embody that state you say you desire? And I think about Wayne Dyer used to say, there is no woulda, coulda, shoulda. There is what was, and there is what is. And the power of choice. Because here's the thing, if you don't like your life, you have the permission, the free will, the opportunity right here, right now to make a new decision. People ask me all the time, how long does it take to fix? First of all, we're not broken. And I love that you even said that. I felt broken. We feel that way because that's a condition. We get conditioned to believing something's wrong with us and broken. And it's things we just need to unpack and unlearn and get back to ourselves, which we just need to come home, right? It's that alignment piece. It's why I say the ultimate life hack is, look, just get aligned as fuck. I mean, seriously, it's not that complicated. And people will ask all the time, how long does it take? My response always is the minute you make a new decision. It literally happens when you say, and it's not just choosing the affirmation and going, well, from now on, I'm going to be toxic positivity. Don't even get me started on that. It's not about just saying something. It's about making a decision that literally, and I think about coming into this year, and Chris, I know you've had those moments where I literally walked in this year and go, I don't know why my phrase is, I am no longer available. And it took some hard spots through this year, including getting off the grid for a while, for me to come back and go, oh, I am no longer available in any way, anyhow, to fucking play small in my life at all, period. It means I'm gonna piss a lot of people off. It means, and it's only when that fire gets big enough that says, I'm done with this bullshit, that you make a decision that says, you know what? The pain of change is far less than the pain of sitting in this shit that just feels awful. I'm tired of living my life on the hamster wheel or in the space, or to your point, feeling like shit. Like, right, I don't feel good. We are missing the opportunity to feel fulfilled and joyful. And so I'd love to hear, your thoughts about that space around. I just love that you talked about the embodiment of it, and I'm just gonna throw it back out there and let you roll it.
Yeah. I mean, what you said, I'm no longer available. Like when people hear this, and I guess I don't want to say, oh, hey, we're so aware and we're so aligned or all that stuff. But a lot of people hear that and it's like, oh, well, gosh, she's so angry and all that stuff, about saying this. Where I see this, the fire is compassion. all that stuff is coming from a place of compassion. And I think too, that's where we come into, if we were to say our purpose, or we come into the moment, is about being compassionate, not just for other people, but for ourselves as well. How do I be compassionate for myself so that when we are compassionate, that purpose then just starts embodying and saying, you know what, the things that I was afraid of going out and speaking in front of people, or going out and asking for that raise, or going out and starting that business, or picking up myself up from my bootstraps. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but like after I've had this breakup and say, I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life, and deciding I'm going to be compassionate for myself. So then I'm actually living the place that I want, living the body that I want, living the purpose that I want. And what I heard in all of that is that the fire is really just a place of love. It's a place of compassion from that. And what's the saying is, we have two decisions. Is this decision being made from a place of fear, or is it being made from a place of love? And all I heard from that, it's like, for you, and I know you gave this talk about, the 4-letter word, and maybe I shouldn't say it on busy.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Is that, yeah, we do that. And for me, I was always saying, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy. First of all, it made me feel more important. Look at how busy I am. Look at all the stuff that I'm doing. And then also as a self-defense mechanism. Oh, if I pretend how busy I am, you'll stop asking me for things. You'll stop coming to me. Because for me, I'm the eternal people pleaser. Someone says something, how can I make it? How can I make your life better? How can I make this easier? And what's the saying is, like, everything that we say yes to, we have to say no to something else. And so we're continually saying no to ourselves. No, you don't deserve any more time. No, you don't deserve a little bit of break. No, you don't deserve some space to just kind of feel and process things. And that's kind of too, I always, if someone would ask me if I could do something, can I get back to you at that? For me, I always felt like, I need to answer you right now. Okay, I don't have an excuse, so then yes, I'll help out right away. And so, it's kind of like, the aspect of what I heard in all of that stuff. It's just with the purpose or all these things, it's like, how do we come from a place of compassion so that all of the things that we're fearing no longer have that extreme power over us? Because there always will be a part of that. And I was talking with a potential client yesterday, and they didn't want to put things on social media because they're worried about being judged and all that stuff too. And I said, the imposter syndrome, right? And they're saying, yeah. And I said, if you are a normal person, for lack of a better term, you're going to have imposter syndrome. The people who don't have imposter syndrome are psychopaths, sociopaths, because they don't care. They don't care whether they hurt anyone. They don't care whether they're doing the best and all that stuff. So when we are dealing with imposter syndrome, it's us questioning, can I be good enough? And so it's just making sure that we don't have extreme imposter syndrome. It's just saying, okay, well, I care enough to bring something beautiful to the table. And then how I do that is I step forward ready to make mistakes, because you and I have talked about the perfectionism aspect. Well, I can't do it until I have everything right. But what's the saying is, I found out that I didn't get the experience until after I needed it, or the answer.
Right. And so, I think about all of that. First of all, I want to highlight, I love that you called out, because if all of you haven't noticed, Chris and I have a different energy from each other. I am an explosive little, like, hot Italian that likes to get fired. Chris gets that fire because I want you to hear the passion in his voice. I want you to hear about his clarity and space, and the fact that we both can channel, because I would even say that sometimes there is a little anger. There's an anger of letting other people, me giving myself a space where I let other people drive how I get to show up. And it's a space of not being available. But I really want you to pay attention to the fact that, because some people will say, Candy, I don't get wired like you do. You're not supposed to. You could have a gentle energy. Chris has it's one of the reasons I love being in his presence, because he's very grounding for me. He really is very calm and gentle and like this loving energy. It's not to say I don't have those things, but it shows up very differently for me. I'll kick you in the ass and love you through it. Chris is holding a different space. And I want you to realize that it's one of the reasons I want to do these raw riffs, is because I want you to see that thought leadership doesn't look the same. Being in a space to be aligned feeling connected, congruent, and having that compassion for self and others, because it does come from a place of, are we coming from a place of love, or are we coming from a place of fear? That's it. Everything's a derivative of one of those two spaces. And I think about Shaman Durek said in his book, Spirit Hacking, that we're so afraid of the darkness, yet all the darkness wants to do is be brought to the light. If you think about it, it's actually our friend. It's a space that says, I see you. I feel like we need to protect you. It's in a space because these stories, it can be generational conditioning. It can be legacy things that have been handed down. It can be, and even when Chris is talking about it, like this stuff gets in your cells. We have stories that are imprinted in our DNA, either because we've repeated them on over and over again, or they've been handed down and actually fed through our lines and our genes. And like there is real data that shows neuroscience that shows the wiring in the DNA, like there is cellular damage things. So when Chris talks about your gut, yeah, your gut has all these neurons. It's why most people, their symptoms aren't even real. It's a function of leaky gut. It's a function of digestive issues. It's a function of other things, because their cells, your body, and there's a whole nother episode that I'd love to talk to Chris, because he is like, physiologically, physiology is one of his jams. How the body responds to different stress and things and training and what you're doing. And you can go and like the quote that says, look, you can spend hours in the gym and cleaning up your diet, but if you're not right in your mind, your emotions, your spirituality, your energy, it's all for naught, right? You can only, that's surface stuff. There is real things we've got to get into at a very granular level to say, is my body whole? Right. And so I hear Chris saying that. I just want you to see the distinction around, while we have similar beliefs in some areas and even some things we may see differently, we bring a different energy to the table. And again, it all serves for us to do the work that we get to do. And I love that you called that out, because yes, some people be like, I can't, you're so angry. Not angry, very passionate, fiery, and I'm Italian. Chris.
And purposeful.
And Chris channels that same energy differently. And the way he shows up is actually more calming. And so now you see that there's spaces where you can dance in between, because there are times that my energy gets very quiet too.
Sure.
And there's times where he gets a little bit more raw and out, yet our natural balance is we sort of seem like we're on different sides of that spectrum. And again, one of the reasons why these raw riffs are so important, because I want you to recognize that there isn't an answer. There's not like one way we need to go about our life. Embodiment doesn't look like your embodiment, doesn't look like mine or Chris's. It looks like yours. It looks like your space to say, do I take the time to ask myself, what is it I really want? And not want from a lack or scarcity mindset like Chris was talking about, but want from a truly desire, that I know that if I desire it, that I'm worthy to have it, because I wouldn't have that desire otherwise.
Yeah.
And the real,
and that you already have it too. You just,
right, that it's already available, right? It's already here. And then who do you need to be to become aligned with opening up access to it? Because to Chris's point, it's already here. Everything we've ever thought, wanted, desired, manifest is already being created. It's already available. We just need to create a space to embody the beingness of it and to align ourselves in a way that we can call it in.
Yeah.
So we are getting to the end of the time, which Chris, I hope you'll come back. I could talk to you all day. I want to ask you, you have some big things coming up. So would you talk about the space that people can connect with you and your new program that you're rolling out coming into the new year, so that if people are interested, they can find out some more information?
Yeah, on social media, I'm at the Chris O'Hearn. And so you can find me either on Facebook or Instagram, and I'm just putting out videos each day on that, on the reels and all that. So it's a good way to connect. My site is strongwithin.com, and you can check stuff out there. I need to update. Sometimes I'm doing more updating because social media is the new thing and all that stuff too. So it's a way that people can see like my about me and all that stuff, and I have my programs on there. But anyways, yeah, in January, I'm going to be doing, I don't call it a goal setting course because it's not a goal setting course. I don't really, not that I don't believe in resolutions, but resolutions just come from a high emotional place at the beginning of the year, and then it's hard to sustain it. And that's why people don't sustain it. But usually I've done it during the summer because like that's where people have failed off being in the gym. People are usually dropping off in February, but I'm going to start in January on this course. It's called the Strong Within Ultimate Life. And if you're interested in it right now, I don't have my sales page up, but it's strongwithin.com/SW goal. So SW, Strong Within Goal. And you can sign up for information to be the first of that. So basically what it is, it's kind of what Candy and I have been talking about, that most people are trying to get to have, I want this goal, I want this car, I want this job, I want this person. And it's really about alignment of being that person, understanding you are that person. And so I go through all these different pillars, and each week we're going to go through something new. So I have this planner that we're going to go through, and I unveil in the planner of the part of it. It's going to be affirmations, values, emotions, our routine, our habits, and things like that. And so it's coming in a place where I'm not giving it to you all at once, because it's like, hey, here's everything, now go and do it on your own. But it's a group coaching course where what we're going to do is we're going to unveil, and you're going to work on that through the week. And then we're going to have a group coaching call, and then we're going to have the next week and all that stuff too. So it's more about aligning yourself with the goal. So you're not trying to force or fight your way to the goal, but your goals, the things, I think Rumi said this, the things that you're seeking are seeking you. And so it's just about opening up, taking those barriers down, and aligning yourself up to that. And that's really how goals and the things that we want happen. Everything is on a vibrational level and all that stuff. And so we are out of alignment with that vibrational aspect of the things that we want. So it's realigning yourself and bringing you back into alignment to the places that you want to be, and who you want to be, and who you truly are, and all that. And that's just, we have forgotten that, because we're in this world of, oh, well, I want a car, so then I have to go on and I have to work for it. I have to do. And that's how we create it. But actually, it starts in here. People who have Lamborghinis, or people who have the relationships they want, the good relationships they want. There's purposeful thought in that of, how do I manifest? What do I truly want? How do I clearly see that? So then I create that.
Yeah, I love that. And I highly encourage you to go check out Chris's work. He does a video, he does a reel every day on some really powerful topics. A lot of times he's out walking in nature, and I think you just really connect into that. And I just love everything he's about is everything we talk about. It's alignment, right? It's getting back into that space to really come back home to yourself. And in a lot of cases, it's letting go and releasing all of this conditioning we think we need for how we show up. And so you need to go out to the Chris O'Hearn. You need to go out and like check him out. I know he's just got some phenomenal stuff going on. I highly encourage you to check out his new program. And I just want to say thank you to my friend who honestly, we don't always talk, and we were talking about this last time. We don't always get to connect on a regular basis. When we do, we don't miss a beat. And just knowing that there are other people out there that are so heart-centered, so real, so just open and raw and vulnerable and gritty, and like just showing up. I think we forget that leadership is really about how we choose to show up, how we choose to serve, and how we take personal responsibilities inside those two spaces. It's a choice, and we all can choose to lead from where we're at. And I think about, what Chris said around, we wait for perfection, we wait till everything's perfect. And I love that Joel Manby, who's the former CEO of the Herstinger Family Entertainment, the ones that do all the family theme parks and stuff, said, do for one what you wish you could do for many. So you can lead from where you're at right now. And as y'all know, I like to say leadership is an arm up and an arm back, right? Let yourself be lifted by those ahead of you, and at the same time, lift those behind you who want to come along the ride. So with that, I thank you all for taking a dive down the rabbit hole with us today. Chris, I'm already going to put it out there that I'd love to have you come back. I think there's a lot of other things we could talk about. And I just want to say sincere, deep gratitude, just one, for who you are, how you show up, for being my friend, and for blessing us with your energy, your grace, your vibration today on this show. Thank you so much for being here.
Grateful for you. Thank you.
And everybody else, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We're going to have some more of these raw riff conversations, as well as me getting fired up about God knows what and whatever rabbit hole I'm going down. So with that, everybody, this is Candy. I will catch you on the flip side. Make it a fantastic day. Say yes to yourself and learn how to destroy the noise. I will catch you on the next episode.